6:36, Nationals Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Dan Mandis here along with Jay Harper. Johnny B as well. Want to welcome on into the program Matthew Hurtt from, I know you're from Tennessee, Matthew, but you are in Milwaukee, Wisconsin at the RNC. So, Matthew, one question I want to ask you before we even get started is how much sleep have you had from last night?
Well, it's been all week, Dan, and I committed early in the week to do these 6:35 hits with you each day, and so I can count on one hand the amount of hours I've had of sleep in the last couple of days, probably. But it's exciting because this is the Republican pep rally that is going to push Donald Trump into the general election. And we saw Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, his first time on the national stage last night. And I got to tell you, I don't get too excited about political speeches at conferences. I'll usually watch them on YouTube outside the convention hall. But this speech was electric. And I think the J.D. Vance story is the American story, especially for people like me and people across Appalachia and parts of the American South and even other parts of the country where families dealt with addiction, families dealt with poverty, families dealt with a mama who would run you over with her car, if you were getting her grandson in trouble. And this has just been an electric experience, and I can't imagine after last night's excitement what's going to happen when Donald Trump takes the stage tonight.
It is going to be incredible tonight with former President Donald Trump. Now, as you know, Joe Biden has come down with COVID, they say, and so now he is going to be in isolation for a couple of weeks in Delaware. So I think that, to me, and listen, I'm not one to say, he doesn't have COVID. A lot of people are saying, there's no way Joe Biden has COVID. This is way too convenient for the Democrats. I don't know. I will admit to being a little cynical, but the bottom line is that Joe Biden clearly has not looked good over the past couple of years, and certainly over the last couple of weeks. That BET interview that he had, he was just awful. I mean, he looked and sounded terrible. But bottom line is, let me do this real quick. Bottom line is that for Joe Biden, this is a good thing for he and the Democrats, because the more we see of Joe Biden, the worse he looks and sounds. Go ahead.
It is a convenient exit, but Joe Biden is the leader of the party that said if you interact with people during the height of COVID, you're trying to kill grandma. And this is a guy who was out in Las Vegas at campaign events, coughing and breathing on everybody, and all of a sudden you see these tweets from Democrats out in Las Vegas who were proud to be with Joe Biden.
Yep.
This is a convenient off-ramp if this is what they decide to do. And, of course, Nancy Pelosi and a number of high-profile Democrats are leaking basically an intervention they had with Joe Biden. And because it didn't go their way, they're now leaking to the press to get the press to do their dirty work.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that Nancy Pelosi in the news today that she has told Joe Biden that she doesn't believe that he should continue to run. We hear that Adam Schiff and Chuck Schumer have all said the same thing. And so, for the American people, and you're right, Matthew, I was talking earlier about that, where it seems like if you look at the timeline of this COVID thing, then I'm going to move on, but the timeline of this COVID thing is it looks like he perhaps either knew he had COVID and was still going in for the sniff and, getting real close to people and doing that whole close talking thing that Joe Biden does. And then he leaves. And it's just, I don't know. The whole thing just seems a little suspicious again. But for me, I'm just going to let it go. And I hope, Joe Biden gets better. I'm just going to say it that way, because I'm not like the Democrats who are, calling into question, Donald Trump, did he really get shot? Was it a setup? Does he really need the bandage on the ear? I mean, all of these things that the Democrats are saying about Donald Trump is just ridiculous. And so, but I don't want to talk about that with you. I want to talk to you about this comment from Van Jones.
Strength versus weakness. A bullet couldn't stop Trump. A virus just stopped Biden. You've got the nominees of this party getting their butts kissed. Biden's getting his butt kicked by his own party. The Democrats are coming apart the Republicans are coming together.
I mean, that's something that you and I spoke about yesterday, as a matter of fact, Matthew Hurtt, is just look at the difference between these two.
Absolutely. And your listeners may remember Van Jones from the early days of the Obama years, right? He was the green energy czar, one of those guys, and one of the most committed communists in the Obama administration. And he was ultimately pushed out because of that. And here we are 15 years later, and Van Jones is one of the few willing to speak the truth on CNN. And he has been hard against Joe Biden for the last several weeks. Post-debate performance, he was early in saying, I think we should probably take another look. Now, I don't know. A lot of the folks on CNN and Fox News and MSNBC are consultants, so they get a paycheck from assisting candidates. I don't know where Van Jones' money comes from outside of maybe the CNN contract. But he has been out front since, a day or two after the debate performance, raising alarm bells for Democrats about Joe Biden's performance.
Let me ask this. Biden has COVID. He's off for a couple of weeks. We're not going to hear hide nor hair from him. And that is good for the Democrats. We're hearing reports now, I'm sure you've seen the reports as well, Joe Biden is supposedly, now more receptive to stepping down. He's asking his aides if they believe that Kamala Harris could beat Donald Trump. So word is that it seems like Joe Biden is becoming more receptive to perhaps stepping down. If that were to happen, is there a consensus among the Republican Party who they would rather Donald Trump run against? I mean, Kamala Harris, you got Gavin Newsom out there, you got Wes Moore. Is there any particular person that the Republicans would fear at this point?
I'm not entirely sure because the Democrats have put themselves into this catch-22. If they don't have Joe Biden at the top of the ticket, you almost have to have, because of the way Democrats play demographic politics, you almost have to have Kamala Harris, but she's absolutely untenable. And so I saw a couple of folks on Black Twitter yesterday, that is a subculture on Twitter, who were saying if the Democrats pass over Kamala Harris, there will be hell to pay. And I can't imagine a situation where they don't pass over her if Joe Biden isn't at the top of the ticket. And I think it is a no-win situation. This uncertainty has proceeded through the primary for entirely too long. If this was in March or April of this year, it would be a different conversation. But we're now in the part where now 10 million Americans watched the convention proceedings last night on Fox News primetime, and many, many millions more will watch it in rebroadcasts or radio interviews like this. And people are tuned in more so than at any other point this early in a process. And the Democrats can't do a bait and switch. Joe Biden was on a call earlier this week with dozens of members of Congress on a Zoom call where he got into a tense interaction with a Democrat veteran member of Congress. And I had to step back and say, the problem with having Joe Biden, a Zoom meeting with Joe Biden, is you don't know if your computer is frozen or if it's Joe Biden. Yeah. Like this is the wild thing. And I think Democrats are really stuck this cycle in a place where they're just going to have to manage a defeat. Now, on our side, the polls don't vote and positive headlines don't vote. Right. So we still have to do the work to get our candidates across the finish line. We can't rely on a coasting from the convention. And I think it's very important for anybody who's listening and who's fired up to go to your county party headquarters, find a campaign that you like, and go and volunteer and support candidates and efforts that are going to help push Donald Trump across the finish line everywhere, even in Middle Tennessee, where, the collar counties around Nashville are pretty conservative, pretty Republican. You don't have to worry about those, but drive up the numbers to help those down ballot races as well. So
let me ask you, Matthew Hurtt in Wisconsin. I don't know, did you see the video of Tennessee's Marsha Blackburn and 3 other senators chasing the Secret Service Director, Kimberly Cheadle? They basically, they found her. And they started asking her for answers to the questions that they've been asking. And they actually followed her through the arena, basically telling her that they want answers.
By the end of that full clip, the full video is about 4.5 minutes long. And by the end of the full clip, basically Senator Blackburn and I believe John Barrasso have Secret Service Director Cheadle in almost a fetal position, wandering out of the door. They asked tough questions. These are questions the American people deserve the answers to. And as you heard in the video, I believe it was Senator Blackburn, when they attempted to call the office to get these questions, they were hung up on.
Yep.
And so this is, we see a lot of citizen journalism, but kudos. I saw somebody on Twitter ask, what do you call it when Marsha Blackburn springs an interview on you? And I just said, Miss Cheadle got blackburned last night.
Look at you. All right. Very good. So what do we expect for Donald Trump for tonight?
I think, riding on 3 days of, I would say, the best news cycle Republicans have had in a generation, and seeing the speeches, he's been on the floor every night. He saw his granddaughter speak yesterday, and I thought that was really touching. The J.D. Vance shout out to his mother, who is 10 years clean, is so touching. I think we've come to this crescendo tonight. We know it's going to be a pep rally. We know the energy is going to be high. And I think Donald Trump is really going to bring that unifying message together. And I think it is going to be the human side of Donald Trump that we all knew was there way back in 2015 when we heard about the valet and we heard about all the nice things that he does in quiet that nobody gives him credit for. I think we're going to see a manifestation of that. Donald Trump, the husband, the father, the grandfather, and the American patriot who on Saturday survived an assassination attempt and who has a clear vision and who has reset his vision in efforts toward the American experience and the American dream. And I think it's going to be very exciting tonight.
So where does this whole thing go from here? Trump and J.D. Vance are going to go out and they're going to start campaigning. I think they've got an event on Saturday. Do you know if they're going to be doing campaign stops outdoors? I mean, I know that Trump, and there's audio out there of the former president talking about how his perspective has changed a bit, obviously, as it would for anyone who goes through what he went through. Are they going to continue to do outdoor events, or are they all going to be indoors? And can the man hire his own Secret Service, his own security?
What tends to happen after events, like this is you do another threat assessment and you say, okay, what did we miss the last time?
Everything. They missed everything.
Yeah, exactly. But it's highly unlikely that you miss the top 2 or 3 things from the Pennsylvania incident in the future. I think Donald Trump has a high desire to be where the people are. This is that Jacksonian democracy where you're out there with the folks who are part. This is the American experience. And I think Donald Trump really enjoys that. It will be almost impossible to get him off the stage for public events, and especially outside outdoor events. And I think that's just his nature, and I think that's okay. I think that security, be it Secret Service or local law enforcement or private security, has to figure out what the protocols are and stick to those. And I think next week, after the convention, we'll get some answers before Congress from Secret Service and about what went wrong. But I think, J.D. Vance said Michigan 4 or 5 times, Ohio 6 or 7 times, Kentucky. And so he is going to be in the heartland talking about his American experience. And I'll tell you, the convention doesn't gavel in until after 5 p.m. Central today. And I've got about 2 hours this morning to watch Hillbilly Elegy. And I'm going to dig in and really get to know J.D. from the perspective of his written work and see what it means to have lived that experience.